Tell us about the organ harvesting now.
So this is where if you didn't...
It sounds like one of the things we use as a joke in other episodes.
Yeah, but it's real.
Because that's our improv style.
This is a repeat, not improv. This is a real factual thing that happens.
This is not yes and organ harvesting. This is straight up dance pantomime organ harvesting. That's like the Twyla thing, right? Organ harvesting.
Oh, I thought it was more like a Martha Graham thing. Yeah, I don't know. And now I'm out of dance references.
I'm so surprised that most audience still didn't remember this when they were giving advice to others ago, saying the music was beautiful, the dancing was beautiful, the costumes were beautiful. Keep an eye out for the beating of the woman in one of the dances, but that never seems to come up. And now, granted, I know people don't know a lot of the backstory, but it did seem to stand out as a little different in style from the rest of the show. Nothing up to this point gave any indication that this was going to go this way or that this was going to happen. It was pretty much plopped right in the middle of very, very simple stories, such as people fighting off a villain from some folklore tale. It basically starts out with it was like a younger woman, and it was the first piece set in modern time, and there were only two.
So we've progressed in the first half from 5,000 years ago to 1970s, 80s, 90s.
Out of nowhere, and then it goes back again. There's only two dances that are set in modern times, and interestingly enough, they're the two most bizarre. The young woman, it appears to be a woman practicing a faith, and suddenly she is abducted by clearly communist members and taken to a compound where they just begin to beat her during the dance. I mean, this is all choreographed, but it's very clear they're beating her. And then a doctor comes in. It gives the impression he's going to do something to her head. You don't see what's happening. The lights cut out. Another one of those multi-scenes. Mm-hmm. And when it comes back up, they let her out of the complex and she is blind. So they're either implying that they blinded her, they took her eyes, they may have harvested other organs, but it wasn't clear. So that's why I don't know if this is the same.
I think there might be
referenced.
Other dance numbers where because this is something other people have mentioned.
So I think they do change it. And this was very clear that it was showing the repression of this religion. And one of the other followers comforted her. And then the curtain came down and everyone is clapping normally like every other dance piece. And I'm sitting there like, what did I just watch?
So as it turns out, Shen Yun is the cultural outreach arm of a religious sect from China called Falun Dafa, which has often been described as a cult, though it is not necessarily that. Regardless of what you think about them, Shen Yun is essentially an effort to expose the audience to some religious, philosophical, and political ideals of an organization that they don't realize they're buying tickets to see.
Correct.
This brings us to the meat of the episode. So let's unpack all this. Our very own Spencer learned to read for this episode. Is it a religion essentially?
It's a. Would you say it's a religion?
Okay, so
it's a set of philosophical ideas.
Falun Dafa or Falun Gong. They use the terms interchangeably. Yeah, it's a religion. It's sort of a combination of Buddhism, Taoism, Tai Chi. I guess a lot of the practices.
Maybe.
Well, this isn't from the
Tai
Wikipedia.
Chi.
This is me.
So he doesn't need to
send your hate mail to Spencer.
Send your hate mail for me to Will. Well, on the website it says Falun Dafa is a discipline in which assimilation to the highest qualities of the universe, truthfulness, compassion, forbearance is the foundation of practice. It's essentially like a cult.
Well, that didn't sound like
it just
anything.
sounds ambiguous.
No,
to me.
it just sounded ambiguous.
What does that mean?
So
And
Spencer,
I think this is a theme. This is a theme in the writings is that there's a lot of ambiguity and sort of like meaninglessness.
So just so it's clear for everybody, Spencer,
I set upon reading Zhuan Falun. This is one of the books that everyone practicing Falun Dafa, which is all of the performers in the orchestra and the show, have to read. Okay, so a little bit of background on the book. It seems to have been written in like the early 2000s by Li Hongzhi, who is the founder of the whole religion and also the artistic director of Shen Yun.
Wasn't it
And-
founded in the 90s?
Yeah, something
Oh,
like
so
that.
he wrote it later.
He wrote
Okay.
it. He wrote it. Well, I don't know that he wrote it later because it's composed of 9 talks, but the book is 200 pages long. So even if each talk was just a talk, it's a really long talk.
Li Hongji is the founder.
Yeah, Li Hongji, and he wrote the book or gave the lectures. I don't know if he gave them in Chinese or English or if they were translated into English. They're either poorly translated or he's a poor speaker or I mean, it sounds like someone's talking, but it sounds like someone not very smart is talking.
So you're getting the impression
Like,
that someone's speaking, but someone's either not translating it correctly, or
Yeah, somewhere.
So some of the sentences don't parse or something?
Somewhere between him talking and me reading, there's someone who's functionally illiterate doing some work.
And it could be you.
It could be me.
It could be you.
Like Will said, I did
To
learn
be
how
fair,
to read
yeah,
for this. And I still
I want to say this, Spencer. You are an inspiration.
I mean, to go from
To think that 3 weeks ago, you and me doing C-Spot run, and then you crying in the bathtub.
I mean, he
And
worked
here
his
we
way
are.
up to
Oh my
10-word sentences today, so that was impressive enough as well.
I'll give you some examples of this. I mean, the whole book is just it's just rambly and like let me start with some of the really good quotes. After our Falun Dafa students cultivate a while, the way they look changes a lot. Also,
The way they look?
yeah,
Not the way they see the world, the way they look.
the way they physically appear.
Oh.
Also, older women are likely to get their period back because a practice that cultivates both your nature and longevity needs to have the key, QI, of essence and blood to cultivate longevity. They'll get their period, but it won't be too heavy. They'll have just a little bit at this stage, only the amount that's needed. The amount
I'm not
that's
period
needed for
shaming. I just-
what?
It's like, that's just
no,
a
I know,
weird
it's just
point.
a very specific point
Well,
to dedicate.
I
in a
love the
religious-
detail. But it won't be like if
Right
really
in that Goldilocks
heavy.
zone.
This one's great. It should be said, this guy, Li Hongji, is incredibly skeptical of science in general. In Africa, there's the Gabon Republic, which has uranium ore. It's a country that's pretty underdeveloped, and they don't have the capacity to extract the uranium themselves. So they export the ore to developed countries. In 1972, a plant in France imported that uranium ore. And after chemical analysis, they found that the uranium ore had already been tapped and used. Why is this in a religious text? You'll find out. They thought it was strange, and so they sent over some scientists and technical personnel to make an on-site investigation. Scientists from a lot of countries went there to investigate. They eventually verified that the uranium ore mine was a large-scale nuclear reactor, and the layout was really technically sound. There's no way even us modern folks could create something like that. So when was it built? 2 billion years ago.
Is he talking about the natural nuclear reactor? There is a thing in Africa that there's just like this little coincidence of chemical deposits in the ground so that the uranium actually does. It's like a thing. They know why it works.
But it's clearly it's
Oh,
not
okay.
man-made.
No, and it doesn't make it to like it doesn't refine the is it refining the uranium? Is that the word?
Oh,
think so.
refine?
That's a scientifically known thing though, why that works. Anyway, go ahead.
No, that makes a lot of sense because a lot of what he talks about, it sounds like something he saw on the Discovery Channel and misinterpreted. So he writes, 2 billion years ago, and it operated for 500,000 years. These numbers are just astronomical. There's no way to explain it with Darwin's theory of evolution. What does that have to do with anything?
I don't. Okay.
I don't
So
think it does.
That was his best.
So that's his
That was
argument
his
against
best
evolution.
takedown of evolution. Also, he likes to say nowadays a lot. Everything he talks about, it never used to be this way.
So you're getting a sense that it's very much
Someone who's sundown.
modern versus tradition.
No, more just like an older person who just can't believe that he has to like deal with gay people now.
Oh, that's okay.
Nowadays, it doesn't stop at people just being controlled by greed. Some people will even stop at no evil and do anything for money. They murder innocent people, hire people to kill, engage in homosexuality, do drugs, you name it. There's all kind of stuff.
I would take money to do drugs.
You would take money to do drugs. Who's going to pay you for that?
Okay, so they don't like killing, which I think we all agree on we don't like killing.
Yeah.
I think
But they
it
also-
really depends
they don't
on
like-
who's being killed.
I can't.
They don't like
can't.
and they also don't like homosexuality or drugs. Okay.
Yeah, he mentions this in a later talk. It's like the exact paragraph. Like he just repeats himself.
Oh,
Just over and over. If he edited the book down, like you could easily cut it in half and lose nothing. He also gets really annoyed when people do his religion wrong. Like a lot of the book's just him complaining about people who like don't get it and they're not into it enough.
And this is considered a religious text.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Jesus kind of complained about that.
Yeah, and this guy is
He was like, "No,
basically-
you don't get it. It's simpler. Just don't be a dick."
I think that
No,
was...
here you go. To be honest, when some people are doing their qigong, which is like the Tai Chi exercises, who knows what they're doing? They'll be exercising away, swinging their bodies all around, and at the same time going off about things. That daughter-in-law of mine has no respect for me. My mother-in-law is such a wretch. He hates women. But
Yeah, those are two very strangely specific examples.
yeah, so you really get the sense that a lot of it's just like thinly veiled autobiography.
Where did you find this text?
On the Falun Dafa website.
So this is straight from the source, right from
Yeah.
their website.
So anyone
Okay.
can go read this, and yeah,
Yeah, no one should. It's an enormous waste of time.
everyone should go
Well,
check it out for themselves.
Let me interject real quick. I just wanted to say that regardless of my personal feelings or anyone else's personal feelings about religion, everyone is allowed to believe or not believe or partake in any religion that they choose. Where I take issue is when the negative aspects of any religion are what's actively engaged by the members. This isn't a takedown of religion. This is a discussion of what the actual story behind this concert is.
Just because this is a religious group, whether you agree with it or not, has no bearing on one's enjoyment of the show. You know, Mormon Tabernacle Choir, they do great work and people love them. And
You would see the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
I mean, probably not. I'm just not interested in most things. But
Well, there's tons of concerts sponsored by
yeah,
Catholic churches,
Orchestra of
Christian
St. Luke's
churches.
is are they technically affiliated with?
I don't know at this point.
A lot of choirs are religiously affiliated.
And to be fair, a lot of those points are in a lot of mainstream religions. Christianity,
sure.
though not most Christians, it's not in practice. But
The reason that this is interesting is Falun Gong came into being sometime in the latter half of the 20th century. Essentially, it took off like a rocket in China to the point that the communist government got a little nervous about how much people were liking it and were worried about there being a little bit more enthusiasm and or loyalty to that religion than the government. Again, everything that we're talking about, a little bit of conjecture and anecdote, because both the Chinese government and
Falun
Dafa don't really have a track record of backing up their information, hard evidence or facts.
and
So
you may have already said this, but Falun Gong is the same as Falun Dafa.
they are the
correct?
same. Yeah, it's just two words. Essentially, at a certain point, the Chinese government banned Falun Dafa from China. I believe they wanted to arrest Li Hongji, but he had already moved to New York. So it's banned there. Falun Dafa's side of the story is to this day, practitioners in China are arrested and rounded up and have their organs harvested. Although apparently, whether or not there's ever really been a recorded case of anyone dying in Chinese custody because of that is up for questioning. It's unclear.
Yeah, but it's also it's ambiguous because the Chinese government doesn't have a squeaky clean track record for human rights.
Yeah.
So it leaves it up.
We're not saying that they're wrong for saying this or anything. We're just saying it's unclear what the truth is because this group does tend to communicate their beliefs through propaganda and
One thing you should that's worth remembering. Whatever claims they make that may or may not be true,
That what the audience doesn't really know that they're signing up for when they buy a ticket to this, and what they're really seeing on stage.
I knew. That's why I went.
Regardless of your opinion on it, you should know, like you said, Will, you should know what you're supporting, whether or
Right.
not you think that this has ulterior motives, like, or if it is really authentically believed by the creator and the practitioners. Biggest issue that I have is that not only do you not have a clear sense of what you are supporting, you don't even really get a clear sense of what's being promoted during the show. So it's almost like
It's a little brainwashy.
it's a little it leans more in that direction than I would feel anyway comfortable with.
But it's like too vague and confusing to actually wash
Exactly.
your brain.
It's more like a brain rinse.